Hey, howdy, hey folks, it is Mr. Johnson with the Accurate Wisdom channel again. We're doing my second video on color genetics, specifically about how to talk about genetics using a proper genetics vocab. This one, hopefully, will make things make a little more sense from the last video. Because we'll actually have words to describe some of the concepts that we were talking about, and will continue to talk about in this series. So, first and foremost, we're going to talk about gene descriptions. And if you remember from last time, DNA is housed in every cell. And there's parts of DNA that are a library of information for cells to use for things like color. And based on what that stretch of DNA says, we'll provide different colors. So, first and foremost, gametes. Gametes are sex cells that only have one allele, or one half of the DNA, from the thing that produced it. So, from a living organism. Living organisms create sex cells that only have half of their DNA all mixed up for reasons that we can talk about later. An allele is a variation of one gene that is found in the same place on the chromosome. So an allele is the different letters that we talked about in the last video. The big B, the little b. Those are variations, right? So in this case, we're talking about flower color down here. A gamete would be this whole thing encompassed in a cell, this top one. A gamete would only have this top piece encompassed in a cell, and it would give it to another cell. The two half cells would meet and make this thing, which has two alleles. An allele is a variation of one gene, right? So this would only have one letter, this top one. An allele is the one letter piece. And it's either gonna, for the most part, gonna be a big letter or a little letter. And when you come back together for mitosis, when you are an independent organism of your parents, you become an organism with two alleles because you have a full set of DNA. And allele is a variation. So you have two layers, two alleles as a person for every gene that you have. You have one from mom, one from dad. Now we're going to talk about some of those fancy words that we were talking about earlier. A genotype is the genetic representation of traits. So, genotype is what all this crazy stuff is. Genotype is what the library book says. What the genes library says. Which we assign 2 letters. We assign the genetic library that houses a particular gene an allele for every option that we can have. Big B, little b. The genotype is how those 2 alleles, how all this DNA stuff looks like in the DNA, in the book. The phenotype is the physical representation of traits. So as you can see in this photo, the phenotype would be petal color. And I can read a book all day long, right? Genotype is what's in the book. Phenotype is the cover of the book. What's the cover look like? Genotype, what's in the book. Now, we're going to start describing genotype using a different model, using our Punnett square model, right? So where's our gametes? Our gametes are here. This is a gamete. This is another potential gamete. This little b, this big B, those are gametes. Big B, gamete. Little b, gamete. Allele, a variation of one gene found in the same place. See? Look, see? Allele. You can see alleles here. Genotype. Where do we find genotype on here? In the letters. The genotype is what? What's in the book? The book says 2 big B's. The book here says a big B and a little b, which is important for future generations. When you become a parent. When this flower becomes a parent, we talk about genotype. Because they pass down not their coat, not their literal hair, they pass down the book that has that information. Phenotype. Here we have lots of options. And phenotypes look, at least in this chart, there's a lot of them that look the same. We have this one. Hold on. That's going to beep at me until I stop. I'm sorry, I'm cooking at the same time. Should be doing not more than one thing at once. Phenotype is what the cover of the book looks like, right? So we have, 5 purple pink flowers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pink flowers. And 1 white flower. What gives? Why is there only 1 white flower? And that's what a guy named Mendel wanted to figure out. And he said, what gives? Why is there only 1 flower? And why do the 1 flowers keep showing up at weird intervals? So we went through and studied it and found out what Punnett squares are. And found out that we could write Punnett squares and figure out the genotype. And he did some weird reverse mental math for that I would not be capable of. I don't think. Genotype, what's in the book? We have 4 different genotypes here. We have, 3. 3 different genotypes. Big B, little b, big B, and little b, little b. What's that mean? That's important because we're going to talk about heterozygous, which has 2 different letters or alleles in a genotype. Homozygous, which has the same letter in a genotype. Same letter or alleles in a genotype. Dominant. This is where the drama starts coming in. Dominant is an allele that fully determines or overrides physical appearance, which is why all those flowers are red and there's only 1 white one. A recessive allele is an allele that requires both to be the same in order to show up on the cover of the book, which is why this flower is white. And so, moving too fast. Let's go identify heterozygous, homozygous, dominant, recessive. Heterozygous, 2 different alleles. Big B, little b. Big B, little b. Heterozygous, 2 different ones. Homozygous, big B, little b, right? So this one is going to pass big B no matter what you do. You could not take that flower and make it have a little b. That's just not going to happen. Unless some wild hair in the wall thing happens, that flower right here, this yellow one in the yellow box, is always going to make big B's. This white flower in the purple box is always going to make little B's. That book has nothing but little B's in it. That book doesn't know what a big B is. It cannot give anyone a big B because it's got little B's. Those are homozygous. They are the same. Same. Heterozygous. Big B, little b. It could be different. They're not going to give the same. They have options. Heterozygous. More than one option. Dominant, recessive. Now, this photo here that I have listed has maybe a hard time demonstrating dominant. I won't say that. Correction. This photo shows what dominance and recessive alleles, my apologies, look like in the wild. There's lots of red and a little bit of white, which is what Mendel looked to figure out, because he's like, hey dude, why is it like this? To find out that dominant alleles show up when there's just one big letter. Dominant. Big. Ugh. Big letters mean dominance, which means big B is going to be purple, right, or red. Going to be a dark petal color. Big B anywhere, going to be dark petal color with true dominance. And the only way recessive genes show up is if there's two little letters at the same time, because that big B is just bigger. It's just going to take more of the cover. And in this case, in a lot of cases, it just takes the whole cover. It's like, you know what? Never mind. You go hide in the book. You just go sit in the corner. In the smack in the middle of the book. I'll take care of the cover. That's dominant and recessive genes. And then, of course, because things have to be convoluted in color genetics, there's a couple different kinds of dominance. There's complete dominance, which is what I just demonstrated to you. You're going to be totally entirely purple or totally entirely red because of the dominant allele. Dominant allele just like takes over the cover and is like, you know what? You just get to hang out in the book. Recessive allele. Incomplete dominance is where the dominant and recessive alleles blend to make a new option. So a red and a white flower would make pink. Purple and a white flower would make lavender. Which is this color, right? So you find that there's a lot of pink stuff and a little bit of red and a little bit of white. Codominance is another way that we represent dominance. Codominance is when the dominant part and the recessive part share pieces of the cover. They don't mix like incomplete dominance. They share pieces of the cover. They're like, this is your side, this is my side. Hence this photo. Each one gets a piece and they're allowed to have their little piece all to themselves. They don't have to share. They've handed each one a piece of the candy bar and said, a piece of the cover and said, you color on this, I color on this. Incomplete dominance is when they both color all together. They just share. And they get to color all over the place, all together. Complete dominance is where they don't share. Incomplete dominance, they share everything. Codominance, they separate it and they share pieces. So, what did we learn today? There's a particular way to talk about genetics. There's a particular way to identify the information that's in the book versus what is actually represented outwardly from our cells. So what's in the gene versus what's in what the cells actually look like. If you learned anything else, drop it in the comments, because I'm spacing, because now I have other things to do, unfortunately. But drop a comment, like, subscribe, follow. I hope you learned something today, and I hope you come back to learn about more color genetics, because I promise we're getting to the good part. And I hope this makes more sense. A little more sense. This go around. Because I promise you, it's a big picture thing. It's going to make sense once you just got to hold my hand. I promise. Okay? So come on back for the next video. I'm very excited. Okay, bye.